Okay. Um, Yep. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, somebody popped up again in the chat. So good evening, everybody.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
joining. Yeah, I feel like I got all these lights on in the house. It doesn't look it, but just thank you for joining our program tonight. I am Susan M. Hart-Servideo from the Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Ocean County. Patty Dixon is also a horticulturist in our county as well, and who has done a great job putting together our in-persons and our webinars. So kudos, thank you. And we're working on 2026's versions. So stay tuned. We'll see what's coming through. Tonight we do have Irene Wannett, who is a Rutgers Master Gardener not in one county, but in two. She started in Ocean County with us in 1990, began our first class, our first president, and she went on to join Monmouth counties when they started in 1999. So welcome, Irene. And I'm going to let it take it away because I know you have a lot of great information and I don't want to run into your time.
Yes, I
One,
know.
I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to put the link to the handout in the chat again. I'll put it in there a couple times, so that's available to you all. If you don't get it for some reason, we'll email it in a couple days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can click on the link and it'll take you right to a Google site. So
okay, sorry.
All right, Irene, take it away.
Okay. Yes, yay. Thank you guys for showing up and listening to my talk. I hope I don't go over. Anyway, this talk is really a fun talk, and I really learned a lot, really enjoyed putting it together, and I hope that you will enjoy listening to it. So the topic is top drought-tolerant plants for a resilient garden, which is important at this time. Before I go on, I need to show this, that Rutgers Cooperative Extension and Rutgers, they're equal opportunity program provider and employer, and we like that a lot. Okay, so I went on this site that Patty told me to go on, and this is the information that I got, that New Jersey remains in a drought watch. Now, what that means is that we don't really have a drought yet, but it's veering in that direction. So if we can, we should be conserving as much water as possible. And of course, they list the different ways that you can do that, which I'm not going to do. So it's really very important ecologically, environmentally, to not use too much water, to conserve as much water as possible. And this talk tonight will be dealing with plants that love not having a lot of water. Okay, so one of the ways to water your garden, and it's a nice, easy, basically cheap way, is to have a rain barrel. And rain barrels are really great. There's a whole bunch of information online about them, and you can make one, and I'm not going to go into that because I would like to talk about my plants. Okay. Also, many people like to use gray water for their garden, and that's a whole thing that's really not, it's simple, but it's really complicated, because gray water is not the water from your kitchen sink or toilet or dishwasher, because there's all kinds of pathogens in there, and it may be high in organic content. But anything from your bathroom sink, showers, bathtub, washing machine, you really need a plumber in order to make sure that you can get that out. Otherwise, it's not an easy thing to do. And what you need to do is you need to go to state sources as well as government sources to see what the rules are and what you need to do and what you cannot do. So that's an option there. All right, so to minimize water loss, plants have many ways of conserving, of conservation. And besides wilting, folding leaves, and leaf curling. And we've all seen that in our gardens with certain plants. But plants do have a lot of strategies, and I'm going to go into some of that before I talk about the wonderful plants that can live in your garden. All right, they have an extensive root system. Um, You all know what a carrot looks like. It's basically a taproot, and it goes deep into the soil and it finds its way down to a place where there's moisture. And plants have that too. And one of the plants that everybody knows very well is this wonderful dandelion, which is a foreigner. It's not an American, it's not native, but you can see it has this nice taproot. And another one that we all like to look at is Queen's Anne's lace. It's another one that has a nice deep taproot. So these are the ones that we really don't want too much in our garden. But we have so many of these wonderful plants that have long taproots. Here are just some of them. Many of the plants that I'm going to be showing you, I will be talking in more detail into the program. So just look at the wonderful, beautiful plants that have these wonderful, extensive root systems in order to be able to deal with drought. Okay, another root system that's really very helpful for plants is the shallow lateral root system. And here are some examples where you see there's a whole bunch of little roots there and fine hair roots attached to the roots that spread out. And what they do is they are there to capture any kind of light rain very quickly, very efficiently, and also dew in the morning. So that way they will have moisture. And we have plants. Here are some ground covers that do that very well. And not only do we have ground covers, but we also have wonderful plants that have those kind of roots, and that's one of the reasons why they survive. Another type of a structure, root structure, are these rhizomes, tubers, bulbs, corms, and fleshy roots, as well as other types of extensive root systems, modified roots. And some of the plants that you are familiar with have these wonderful ways of conserving water. The irises, if you know irises, if you've planted them, you know that they have rhizomes. And also one of my favorite ground covers, which is that Bigfoot cranespill, they also have the rhizome. And what I learned from one of my friends, Howard, he told me that these rhizomes are not really roots. They are modified stems, which I couldn't believe, but yes, it's very true. They are modified stems and they're there as a water source. And nutrients also. They do a lot of storage. And here we have the tuber. Tubers, dahlias have tubers, and they also store moisture and nutrients as well as bulbs. And these odd looking things, these corms, we have plants that have corms as well as fleshy roots in order to be able to survive. And here the arrows are showing which ones have what. So the liatris that we're all familiar with, they're corms. And they come up every year, and we all love daylilies because they're so easy to grow. And one of the reasons is because they have all this moisture in these fleshy roots. Besides the roots, plants also have strategies with their leaves. Many of them have tiny leaves, very small leaves or narrow leaves, so that way there is not a lot of area for moisture to evaporate. So here are some of them, and again, I will be talking about some of these, most of these later on. Fuzzy hairs. Hairy leaves or fuzzy hairs, which are called trichomes, are really important. And here are some of the plants that you may be familiar with that have that nice fuzzy leaf. And what that fuzzy leaf is, it's like a down coat. It's an insulator. Not only is it an insulator from the heat, but it also keeps the moisture in, and also it reflects the sun so it doesn't heat up the leaf. If you take away the hairs, you will see that those leaves are actually green, but it's the fuzziness that makes them look gray. And if you guys are not familiar with this Salvia argentea, I highly recommend it. It's not a perennial, it's a biannual, and it has these beautiful leaves. And the second year in its life, it has these beautiful white flowers, a nice stalk like a salvia of these white flowers. And I've had this in the past, and what you can do, which I did, I would fool the plant into thinking that it didn't bloom, so it would continue blooming. So as soon as the blooms would be looking like they're done, I would cut them off, and that plant will send off some more of those wonderful blooms. So if you can find this plant, I highly recommend it. So besides these gray plants, we have other plants that have fuzzy leaves, the yarrow, which we're familiar with, as well as plants for the shade. So it's not just in the sun that plants have these fuzzy leaves, but also in shade. And as you notice, I always try to put what kind of sun the plants need. Okay, also, many plants have cuticles, waxy cuticles. And what that is, it's a waxy coating. Some plants have thicker waxy coatings and others do not have as thick. And the thing that it does is it insulates the leaves so it doesn't, so the moisture doesn't evaporate. So here are some that are in the shade. And here, these are perennials. And here I figured I'd throw in a few of the shrubs, which I'll be talking about later on. And as you can see, they have these shiny leaves, which is that waxy cuticle, which keeps the moisture in the leaves. Also, we have waxy cuticles that are colorful, that are either silver or blue-green or white, and that also reflects the sun, so the leaves don't get really that hot. Also, we have succulents. We like succulents because they really don't need a lot of water. And here we have hens and chicks and other sedums, as well as Delosperma, which has, as you can see, the succulent leaves. And we have here two plants that you wouldn't think are succulents, but they actually are. Not everybody likes yucca, but yuccas are wonderful and they live forever, it seems. All right. Then there are plants who just they do their thing and then they're gone because their life cycle is very quick before it starts getting really hot. And some of these are the ones that we like to see in the spring. These are our ephemerals or our sleeping beauties. And look how beautiful they are. And they are usually in a wooded area, so it's really shady there during the season. However, in the spring, there are really no leaves, so they get to have all that nice sun. They get to do what they need to do, and then they go away. And I wanted to show you that three of these ephemerals are also have tubers also. So they have competitions from the trees, so that they need to have some sort of system in order to be able to have the moisture. And if you want more information, please visit Bowman's Hills Wildflower Preserve. You can go on their site, or Mount Cuba. That's another place that has all these wonderful ephemerals in the spring. And believe it or not, bulbs are ephemerals also. They do their thing and then they're gone until the next year. And a lot of these bulbs you need to plant in the fall, but I'm not going to talk much about bulbs because we have other plants to talk about. Okay. And these are all specialized root structures. All right, so you need to choose the right plant for the right spot, which you are going to hear all the time because it's really very important. If you're going to be spending money on a plant, you want to make sure that it comes back. So you need to make sure that that plant is going to live well in the spot that you choose. So what you need to do is take an assessment of the site where you're going to be planting. So these are the growing conditions that you need to consider. How much light that site gets during the day. Also, what kind of natural moisture does that site get? My property has a high water table, so I have to make sure that I put in plants that can stand roots being in water when it's raining a lot in the spring or in the fall. And there are many plants that can do that. Also, you need to know what kind of soil type you have because that's also very important as far as how much you need to water and what you need to do for that plant to survive. All right, so the most important thing to consider obviously is light availability. So how much sun does the site get during the day? So what you need to do is you need to observe when and for how long the site gets full sun. And the best time to do this is obviously in May, June, and July when the canopy of the trees have filled in, and also the angle of the sun is what you're going to be having for the growing season. And the best way to do that is either with a digital camera or your smartphone. So what you do is whatever site you're going to be planting, take as many pictures as you can, different times of the day. It doesn't have to be all one day or even 1 week. Just take all the pictures, and then when you're done, you look at the pictures and you see the timestamp, and you'll see, oh, I have sun in the morning at 10 o'clock, but oh my God, 2 o'clock, there is no sun. We all think we have a lot more sun than we actually do. So it's really very important because plants need to have the light that they need in order to do well. So here is a chart to show you that obviously the more trees you have, the more shade you're going to have. So there's different types of definitions as far as shade, full shade, deep shade. So that's really important because you do need to choose the right plant for whatever light limitations you have. So here's a summary. And by the way, the handout that you're going to be getting has this, so you don't have to be taking copious notes. So the bad news is full sun is 6 to 8 hours of direct sun on that spot, and most of it between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That is when the sun is really shining really brightly. That's when they tell you to put on that sunscreen. And the afternoon sun is always hotter than the morning sun. And you need to consider that when you're choosing plants also, if they can tolerate that really hot sun. Full shade is not under your porch, dank shade. You need to have at least 3 or 4 hours of sun, direct sun, or it can be dappled all day sun. And anything in between is considered part shade, part sun. Those terms are interchangeable now, so you can use whichever one you want, but it has to have at least 4 to 6 hours of sun. And here are some of the symbols that you may see on those labels, and it's great. You need to read those labels. It's really very important. That is the most important thing to look at, how much sun that plant needs, because that's what you need to give it when you plant it in your garden. Soil, really very important. And there are different types of soil. Sandy soil, which is the largest particles. Sandy soil drains very quickly, dries out very quickly, and everything, whatever you put in there, just burns out very quickly. Clay soil, which is what I have, those are the smallest particles. They're heavy. They hold on to that water. Sometimes it can get waterlogged. As I mentioned before, I have a high water table. So in the spring and in the fall, not this fall for some reason, I'm usually walking on a sponge because the water is just there, locked into that clay. And everybody's dream is to have loamy soil, and that's not always possible. And that's a good amount of mix of clay, sandy soil, and organic matter, and silt. And here is an illustration. This is what the sand particle looks like. And look at how tiny that clay particle is. And silt is right in between. And if you really don't know what you have, you get a jar, throw in some of that soil, put in some water, shake it up, put it down, and go back a few days later or, a day later and look to see what the layering is. And then you will see that if you have sandy soil, that's usually on the bottom because it's the biggest and the heaviest, and clay is up on top. Those of you that live by the shore, if you have sandy soil, saline soil, that is really a very difficult situation because it does a lot of damage to plants. However, there are many, many plants that don't mind living in a salty situation. So there is hope. All right. If you can, try to amend the soil with some organic matter. If you have compost, that's wonderful. If not, you can go buy some at these big box stores. And it's great because it's good for any kind of soil that you may have, because it does provide nutrients and increases microbial and earthworm. Oh, I can't see that. Anyway, populations. And it also improves the drainage of the clay soil because it aerates it to some extent. And also for sandy soil, it slows down the moisture going through, the water going through. And also it reduces compactions and erosion. But please do not plant in pure compost. You need to mix it in the soil. Try not to mix more than 25% by volume because it's going to cause the soil to settle when it breaks down. And if you spend time with your soil, you'll be able to choose a lot more choices of plants if you have a nice organically amended soil. And many years ago, peat moss was just so popular, and they would tell you to put that in any time that you would be planting. Please do not use peat moss. It's not something that you really want to use because there's not a lot of peat moss happening. It takes a long, long time for peat moss to happen. And also, peat moss holds on to moisture. Do not put any in your clay soil because clay soil is a spongy soil. It just sucks up that water, and you're adding a sponge to a sponge. So please do not do that. Plus, there's no nutrients in peat moss, so you're not adding anything. So please don't even think about peat moss. All right. So how much moisture, the natural moisture, does the site get? Dry. This is where the water doesn't hang around for a while, for a long time, especially in sandy soil. You may have a slope where the water just keeps running off, or you have some tree root competition, or you may have some wall or something solid that does not allow for the water, for the rainwater to go there. And here are some of the symbols that you'll be seeing on those plant tags to show you if something is drought tolerant. Dry shade. Dry shade is really very difficult because the shade robs a plant of the sun's energy, and that sun's energy is really important for plants. And the dryness, it really denies the plant that moisture. That's really very important. And unfortunately, if it doesn't get enough water, some of the plants will not be surviving. And dry shade usually is due to thick canopy of trees. And they're not easy to trim or get rid of, so you need to live with that. Also, sandy soil that may drain too quickly in a shady area, slopes where moisture runs off. Tree root competition is a big thing in dry shade. Men with their lawns, they try to grow lawns under trees, not a good thing. Because there's that competition with the roots, and also if you have something solid that's not allowing the rainwater to go there. So know your site's moisture level. So for dry sites, what you need to do is what we're going to be talking about tonight, drought tolerant plants. Okay, so plants are drought tolerant once they are established. That's really very important. Just because it says that the plant is drought tolerant doesn't mean that you can just stick it in the ground and walk away after you watered it. It needs to be watered. It needs to get established. You need to water it. Here is the schedule, which I have in your handout. This is the schedule to get perennials well established. For the first 2 weeks, you need to water daily, unless, of course, it's raining. And I like to, whenever I'm planting my plants, I always like to plant them when I know it's going to be raining because it's going to be easier that way. Anyway, so the first 2 weeks, you need to make sure that the plants have enough moisture. Then after that, the 3 to 4 weeks, you gradually, less frequently, every 2 to 3 days, all depending on the weather and how hot it is and whether it's raining. And it really takes a long time for perennials to get established. Some get established a lot quicker than others, and some may take up a year, sometimes even longer. And then for the second growing season, yes, they're kind of established, but if there's any kind of droughty period, it's a good idea to give some water to that area. And of course, you use that little finger test to make sure that the area is not sopping wet. You need to make sure that there's a little bit of dryness on top. And for those of you who do not feel that you want to amend your soil, you need to water a lot more because there's nothing that's trapping the moisture. So you need to water more frequently. Now, when you're watering, it's a good idea to water not frequently, but also nice long drinks. However, with sandy soil, they say that it's better to give short bursts of moisture so that the water doesn't go leaching down and disappearing. So you make sure that the moisture that you're giving is going to hang around for a little bit in the soil. So frequent small waterings is a good idea. And as you can see with the schedule here, which is in your handout, you have to make sure that the plants have enough moisture in order for them to be happy and to survive. Another thing that's really important is knowing your hardiness zone. After all, you really want your plants to come back. So you need to look at the label and see what zone that plant likes to be in. And we are zone 6B to 7B. And you can see the different temperatures here from -5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you are planting in planters, make sure that the plant that you're getting is 2 zones hardier than our zone because you want the plant to come back, and the plant in the container doesn't have the ambient soil around it to keep it moist. So you need to make sure that it's 2 zones hardier. Okay, so choices, so many choices. But what you need to do is you need to read that label and make sure for each plant that you think that you want to get, you make sure that you check the light requirement, the moisture needs, mature height, mature width, and also the hardiness zone, because you want to make sure that that plant comes back. So this is really very important. There's not a lot of reading to do, but all that information is really important. Okay, so when you do get your plants, make sure that you space them accordingly, according to what the label says, because you don't want to have any competition for the moisture or the nutrients or the sunlight, because stressed out plants that don't get enough of either one of those will be the insects, they can detect the chemicals when a plant is stressed, and they go to that plant, and once that plant starts getting insect problems, it may start getting disease problems too. Now, as you can see by the picture here, this was my little area where I was a temporary area, and at one time I was going crazy with the hostas. This is before the deer came, and I would plant them there thinking that I would plant them in other areas, but I just never got to it. And as you can see, they're one against the other. They're really very close. Now, each one of those should be at least 2 feet, 3 feet, even 5 feet wide. However, because they don't have the space, they never got to be the glorious plants that they're supposed to be. They're all stressed out. So please don't do that. I know we all want instant gratification, but the plants need to have that moisture, nutrients, and sunlight without having to compete with the next plant. Okay, so smart watering practices. So water less frequently and make sure that it's for a longer period so that the roots have enough moisture. Do that in the morning, especially during hot spells, so that way those plants are armed with moisture during the hottest part of the day, rather than watering them when you see that the leaves are wilting. All right, aim at the base of the plant, please. Don't water the leaves, they don't need it. Water down below where the root system is. Use a wand, which is more efficient, and soaker hoses, if you have them, they're really great. They're really efficient. You can wind them all over however you want, and they're great because they use less water, because there's no evaporation, and you don't have a problem with fungal diseases on the leaves. And general rule of thumb, 1 inch of water per week. Of course, take into consideration if it has rained. All right, so here are just examples. These are not all perennials, but I just wanted to show you how you can wind those soaker hoses and make sure that it's not longer than 100 feet, because the longer it is, the less water you'll be giving to the plants towards the end of that soaker hose. And make sure then you cover up with mulch. Mulch is really very important because besides the fact that it's pleasant to look at, it retains moisture in the soil, which is what you need. And it also keeps the temperature even of the soil, so it doesn't really get heated up. And as it decomposes, because it's organic, it is giving time release nutrients to your plants. And of course, we want to stifle those weeds. And it also controls the air and wind blowing away the soil for erosion. So please do not put more than 2 or 3 inches, and please do not let the mulch touch the plants because you don't want them to rot. And here are some examples of the organic mulch. You have shredded bark, shredded leaves, pine needles, which I think is wonderful. And people throw it away. When I was younger and more energetic, I used to go collecting it with my car with these big bags and fill them up with all these shredded leaves that people would be, the pine needles that people would throw away, not realizing that they're throwing away gold. All right, and there's and whatever you do, please, please, please do not use rubber mulch. Some people feel that's wonderful because it will live forever. Yeah, it'll live forever, and it's toxic. You don't want to put that toxic stuff in your garden. Okay, so questions, anybody? Hello?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find my button. I don't see any questions just yet.
Okay, good. Okay,
yeah.
I will continue.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Okay, dry shade. Oh, dry shade. I want to give you dry shade, which is the most difficult in the beginning while we're all still awake and still able to think. So dry shade is really, as I mentioned before, really very difficult. However, we have a lot of these wonderful plants. As I mentioned before, they have all these wonderful strategies, like these shallow roots that collect all that nice moisture from the dew and from even a simple little rain. So one of them is this wonderful ajuga or bugleweed. And what's really great, especially this one, chocolate chip, the leaves are a little tiny and it spreads really very nicely. And it spreads by stolons, which are like little branches, and whatever hits the soil, it roots and it will fill up an area very nicely. So when I show you plants, the first thing that I do is I give you the botanical name, and then I give you the common name. The botanical name or scientific name is what plants are called. It's not Latin name because a lot of these plants are named after people, botanists and other important people in the past, and they just add a nice Latin ending to make it sound Latin, but they're really called scientific or botanical names. Then I give you the plant, how high it will grow and how wide, which will tell you how much spacing, which is really very important because you don't want to be planting tall plants in front of short plants or planting plants too closely together because because you don't want to have that competition. Okay, then I will tell you the zone, which is also extremely important if you want them to come back. Then this is evergreen, easy care. All my plants are easy care. I don't have time to coddle plants. So once they're established, I do nothing. No maintenance. Some of these are no maintenance. You don't have to do anything. And 4 seasons of color. Oh, I forgot. Up here is, I always tell you what kind of sunlight it needs. Part shade, full shade. Remember, not under your porch shade. Full sun, deer. This is deer resistant, and I have something over here so I can't see it, but there's a little rabbit here. So it's also rabbit resistant. Okay, then I tell you when it's blooming, which is really important. If you go away in July, don't plant anything that's going to be blooming only in July. You want to be able to see and enjoy your wonderful garden. All right, then I will tell you pollinators. Most plants have some sort of pollinators that come. This one, the hummingbirds love it because it's full of nectar as well as butterflies. And I forgot about it. Then I put here a little statement of something that's important. Because this plant uh, does a great job spreading, it is really great to have as a ground cover, which is evergreen, by the way, and it's great for slopes and for erosion control, and also long blooming. Most of my plants are long blooming. And what does that mean? That they bloom at least for 4 weeks. To me, anything past 4 weeks is considered long blooming instead of something that blooms for a week and that's it. Okay, so then with these little icons, I tell you something that's like colorful foliage, evergreen, and with this you can walk on there once in a while, but not all the time. And something else about the plant, and then I always tell you what kind of soil that it likes. And I know for many people they love to see poor because you don't need to do anything, or average soil. Most of us have average soil. I think the people who have poor soil are usually the ones that are living by the beach with the sand. So it's really not really nice and rich soil. And then I will tell you whether it's sandy soil or it likes clay soil. Many of these plants will take both of them. And then I have these little icons. This is for heat. This is drought tolerant. If it has more than one cactus, it's really drought tolerant once it's established. This is our wonderful New Jersey humidity, which the plants don't always like, but some of them don't mind it. And this means that it does not like to have wet feet or roots standing in water. And for those of you that live by the shore, you look for this to make sure that that plant can tolerate salt spray. Salt is really harmful to many plants because when you put salt on a steak, what does it do? It takes out the moisture, and it does the same thing to the plant as well as other things that it does to the plant, which is not really good. And here is a container just to show you that this plant will do very well in a container. I think I mentioned everything. Okay, and here are examples of how the plant looks when you have it in your garden or somewhere where you need a ground cover. I put this in your handout also. These are all the different ajugas that you may have if you need something between stones and stuff like that. Really very nice. Okay, we love a stilby. Excuse me. Astilbe is a wonderful plant for part shade, not too shady, otherwise they're not going to do very well. They can tolerate sun only if you give them enough moisture. The reason why I'm showing you this one and the next one is because you will notice that the second name is Chinensis. Chinensis comes from China, but Astilbes that are Chinensis are drought tolerant, not like the other astilbes that need moisture. They don't like to be drying out. They need to have moisture. This one, the Chinensis ones can tolerate dry areas. Also, it can tolerate some sun, but you do need to water it somewhat. What's great about astilbes is that deer don't like it because they don't like finely dissected leaves, because they don't like that mouthfeel, and rabbits are not crazy about it either. They do bloom later than the other astilbes, midsummer to early fall, really very pretty. What's nice about this one is that in the spring, these gold leaves have a nice margin of red around the leaves. As the season progresses, the leaves turn green. It has these nice pink flowers. Leave the seed heads so that the birds can have the seeds at the end of the season and through the winter. And as you can see, what I find is that most plants that like to be in the shade usually like to have nice, rich soil. And I realized a while ago that the reason being that in the woods, those leaves have fallen for many, many years, and there's nobody there with a rake or a blower to blow all these leaves away. So they're sitting on the ground, and as they're sitting, they're decomposing. And year after year, they decompose. And what do you have? You have rich soil underneath. So many plants are used to having that nice, rich soil. So most of the plants, not all, but most of the plants for shady areas usually like rich soil. Okay, let's see. So here, all the nice attributes, and it lives by the shore very well, and it can tolerate pollution if you live in the city. And when I put very long-lived perennial, that means that that perennial, if it's in the right area, will live 10, 15 years, maybe even longer. Now, this plant I love. I have it under a flowering plum tree. I've had it there for, oh my God, it must be at least 15 years. And even we've had droughts here and there through the years, and this plant is there and has come back every single year. This is a wonderful astilbe. It's pumila, and it's a spreader, but it doesn't spread like crazy. It's a really nice plant. It's a really great ground cover, and again, it blooms later on in the season. And this is a short one. There's another Astilbe chinensis tackety, and that one is, I would say, about 2.5 feet to 3 feet high, and it also behaves just as this one does. It spreads nicely and it tolerates dryness very well. So if you can, this is a wonderful plant to get. Let's see. I think I mentioned everything. Okay, this plant, this Japanese painted fern, you can't kill. I've had them for years, and what's nice is when they've been around for a while, you will actually find a little volunteer somewhere a few feet away, or maybe even 10 feet away or more, growing, and you wonder how it got there. You know, they don't have the seeds like regular plants do. They have the spores, and I guess the wind blows it. And if you're lucky, you can have a few volunteers there. This is a wonderful plant. It's very hardy. It was chosen as perennial of the year, perennial plant of the year 2004, and I think it looks great when it's planted next to dark foliage plants because it echoes the nice dark areas of the silver fronds. Really a very pretty plant, and I highly recommend to put this plant in a planter, because in the planter it will come back every single year. And that is one less plant that you need to put in that planter. So I highly recommend ferns. In fact, I am going to show you, I think, yes, here are ferns. As you can see, it says here dry to moist shade. Well, either one, whatever you have. And some are more drought tolerant than others. They're not all the same. They don't all have the same drought tolerance. So look up to see which ones will suit your specific area. But they're really wonderful. And again, these are wonderful in containers and they will come back. But they do like average to fertile soil. Again, having lived in the woods, so they're really, and most of these, except for the male fern, are native to New Jersey. This is a wonderful ground cover. This is Epimedium, and this has rhizomes and shallow roots. which makes it do very well in dry shade. It's an expensive plant because it takes a while for it to really start getting large enough to sell. But also, once you buy it, it may take maybe 2 years or so to get it established. But once it's established, it will do very, very well, and you won't have to do anything. It's a really beautiful plant. Some of them, as you can see here, have a nice reddish tinge in the spring, really very pretty. And look at these beautiful blooms. They look like teeny tiny daffodils. And on this page, look at all the different varieties, really very pretty. I highly recommend this plant, and many of them, not all of them, are evergreen, really very pretty. And butterflies and even hummingbirds find these full of nectar and come to visit. As you can see here with the two cactuses, this is a really very drought tolerant plant. This is another plant that has lived in my garden for more than 15 years. Really very nice. This doesn't mind being under trees. Very, very drought tolerant. I don't do anything at all to this plant. It has this nice rich green color. It's in the same family as the poinsettia. So the blooms are those little things there, and these are the bracts. But the foliage, I think, is really very, very pretty. And look how they look, a whole bunch of them. These are the blooms. I'm not too crazy about the blooms, but it's okay. They serve their purpose and they are evergreen. That doesn't necessarily mean when something is evergreen that it'll be upright and erect during the whole winter. They sort of go towards the soil, but they're evergreen and they're really very nice, and they come back every year, and they spread but not really very crazy, and they're wonderful for slopes and erosion and under trees, whereas where I have mine. And you have to be careful, especially blondes, because sap can be irritating to the skin and to the eyes. Again, very long-lived perennial, and I can attest to that. This is a wonderful plant. I planted some finally this year. I'm going to see if it lives, if it comes back the next year, if it's happy in my garden. This is a wonderful flowering aster that flowers from August to October, and you can plant it under trees. You can see, oh, whoops. Okay, I forgot about that slide. Okay, so I'm going to tell you more about that, but first I'm going to say that it attracts butterflies. I had some time, so I put all these fake butterflies here because they do come and they do need that nectar, especially in the fall, to make their journey to wherever they need to go. So what's nice about this plant is that not only does it attract butterflies, but it attracts beneficial insects. Now, I know a lot of people don't like insects, but here are some pictures of beneficial insects. Yes, there are repeats, but I just want to show you that, they're not all beautiful and all that, but they're really very important, because I'm going to show you the next picture. Because all those insects that I just showed you, look at their prey. They go after aphids, cabbage worms, caterpillars, mites, white flies, all these things that you really don't want on your plants. So all these beneficial insects, if a plant attracts them, please get that plant, because why don't you have an army of these insects coming after your plants rather than grabbing that spray that is not good for anybody? Because not only does it kill the bad insects, but it also kills the good insects. And just because an insect is ugly doesn't mean that it's bad, because look at the lady beetle. This is the larva. The larva is ugly as hell, but that's the time of this insect that goes after all those other insects to eat. So larvae are not pretty, but man, they do such a great job. So if there are plants that you see that attract beneficial insects, please try to get them in your garden. Okay, moving along. So I'm going to talk some more about this plant. This is a picture of Mount Cuba. How many times do you see blooming plants under trees? I mean, I know you see annuals, but as far as perennials, this is a great perennial. It does tend to spread, which is fine. I love spreaders, but not crazy spreaders. Um, and it can go a little bit overboard if you have sandy soil, unfortunately, because it's easier for the roots to go through the sandy soil rather than working their way through those teeny tiny particles of clay soil. Before I went to be a master gardener down in Ocean County, I used to curse my clay soil because it's always hard to plant, hard to do anything with clay soil. However, when I went down to Ocean County and I saw all these people with their sandy soil is so much more difficult. It may be easier to plant it, but as far as keeping plants nice and healthy and planting what you want, it's really very difficult. So I commend all you gardeners that garden in sandy soil because it is work. It's not as easy. However, there are plants that do very well in that sandy soil. And if you do amend it, you'll have more choices. But there are plants that I'm going to be showing you that don't care how terrible your sandy soil is. Okay, so let's see. If you want to freak out any of your guests, why don't you take some of those young leaves that you can eat and throw them in your salad? Or, well, I'm sorry, you can't. You have to cook them first. So a lot of plants that are edible, you have to make sure that you don't have to, that you need to cook some of those leaves, because some of them are toxic if they're not cooked. Okay, let's see. Sandy soil, clay soil, and this plant loves shallow, rocky soil. So those of you that have sandy soil, this is a great plant to put under trees. Really very nice. And go to Mount Cuba and get more information on this wonderful plant. I've had this plant in it borders my driveway. It borders my neighbor, the area between my neighbor. They have a whole bunch of pine trees there. I threw a whole bunch of those there, and every single year they're there. I don't have any weeds there. Here are the blooms. This is Bevan's variety, really beautiful. It blooms in the spring. The deer don't eat this plant. It is very drought tolerant. I really don't do anything to it, and I enjoy it very much. This is how it spreads very nicely. It does self-sow, and this has the rhizomes. And the rhizomes, as you can see, the middle name here, it's big rhizomes. And what's nice about that, because they're big rhizomes, they don't let the weeds go through, which I mentioned before. And if you don't like this pink, this is what it looks like during the whole season. And then in the fall, this is what it looks like. And then towards the winter, and here it is in the winter, it's evergreen. But like I told you before, the plants that are evergreen, they kind of hug the ground during the winter to conserve as much of the heat as possible. The foliage is malodorous, as you know, with hardy geraniums. They're sort of musky, and that keeps the deer from eating it because deer do not like anything that has any kind of fragrance. Whether it's a good fragrance or a bad fragrance, they will not eat that plant happily. So all your herbs, they will not eat. You can plant all the herbs that you want. Let's see, what did I not mention? Very long-lived. As I told you, I planted those, my ground cover, I would say in 2002. They're still there. That's how many years? A long time. So I highly recommend this. And what's nice as a ground cover, nobody else in the area will have this type of plant, and it blooms very nicely. Here is the lighter one. This is Ingertson's variety, and there's the Bevan's variety. This is what it looks like in the fall. Beautiful foliage. Hellebores. Hellebores are wonderful. These are another plant that you can plant under trees because they don't mind the competition of the roots. This is the fetatis. Oh, here are the ones that we know about, that are familiar to us. There are other hellebores throughout the world that we're not that familiar with, but most of our plants, most of our hellebores are these or hybrids of these. What's great about hellebores, besides the fact that they live under trees very well, is that they are evergreen and they will bloom towards in the winter, latter part of winter, really beautifully. This is what the blooms look like, and as it's going to seed, it looks like a bloom even though it's not. Really very pretty. So here is one type. This is the fetatis, which means stinking, and it really doesn't stink. You really need to rub those leaves very hard in order for it to be stinking. Anyway, hellebores have that nice waxy cuticle or coating on the leaves, which conserves the moisture in the leaves. And what's nice about this plant is it self-sows very nicely. The blooms are green with a nice reddish margin on the outside, and that's the only color really. However, there are different varieties of leaves and colorings, and this is what it looks like in the wintertime. And here is another picture. Look how pretty the leaves are. And the bees and butterflies in that time of the year, they're looking for the pollen, and they're looking for that nectar. So this is a great plant for them. Do not disturb. I used to think that they have long tap roots. They do not. Excuse me. They have a nicely developed root system, shallow roots with also some rhizomes. But what's amazing about the root system, it can go out 2 to 3 feet away from the center of the plant, which means they do not like to be disturbed. It's very hard to move them because of the well-developed root system, which of course is what keeps them from drying out. This is Orientalis or Lenten rose. This was chosen as perennial of the year for 2005. These have beautiful colorings of the blooms, and this is what the foliage looks like. Again, you can see how shiny it is. It's that waxy cuticle that's keeping that moisture in there. And luckily it's poisonous, so the deer don't eat it, which is great. And here is a picture of me at Longwood Gardens. I took this picture just to show that even though there are no blooms, this is in October. Look how beautiful that looks because of the different textures and sizes and colors of the leaves. Really very pretty. And this is what you can have in your garden. So you'll have something pretty to look at during the winter. And what's nice about the hellebores, remember I was telling you that the evergreen plants that I talked about before, they sort of hug the ground. These don't hug the ground. They just stand nice and tall. Really very pretty. Here are some of the colorings of the blooms. Really very pretty. And again, rich, fertile soil. So please amend your soil if you can, because they really do not like to live in soil that's not rich. They will not do very well at all. And these Lenten rose, both of them will self-sow very nicely, and the fetatis will self-sow even more because it's not as long-lived as the Orientalis. So it does self-sow so you can have a nice stand of them. The Christmas rose or the hellebore Niger, the difference in that is the leaves are a bit different. Also, the blooms, instead of facing down, face up or sideways. Very pretty. And again, just like the other hellebore, this is what the bloom looks like, and this is as it's going to seed. It looks very pretty. And also, it does not like to be disturbed. Here it is in the snow, looks very pretty. And some of the Niger, look how beautiful their foliage is. And this is what the foliage looks like all season, all year long, not just during certain periods like some plants have. There was something else that I wanted to say. Really a wonderful plant, hybrids. it may not self-sow, so you may not have little babies or volunteers like with the other two. There's a lot of hybridization that goes on with a lot of these, and look at the beautiful different colors and the different. Some of them are double petaled. Double petaled means that it has more than one layer of petals. Really very pretty. And this is another plant that's really great to put in your containers, because look at the hardiness zone, zone 4. So this is another plant that will keep coming back. However, whatever plants you have in the containers, when you overwinter them, make sure that you water them from time to time. Otherwise, they will dry out. Another plant that's really great, and this is another plant that's evergreen in during the winter. This is the coral bells. They come in all these different colors. They also have shallow roots. One of the reasons why it is drought tolerant. Um, there are some natives. We have one that I'm not showing you right now, but the hummingbirds, these little flowers, these little blooms, hummingbirds find them, and butterflies. Really, they have developed so many different colorings and striations and veining. Unbelievable. Here is a plant that is was found in France, caramel. What's wonderful about this plant is throughout the season, depending on what the weather is like, whether it's cooler or warmer, this plant changes to different colors, more caramelly, more yellowish or mustardy, really very pretty, and has these white flowers. This one is citronelle. This was found in France also. It was a chance seedling from they planted a bunch. I think it was um, Purple Palace, and one of them turned out to be this. And whenever they have plants, and one plant is different than the others, or a branch is different, and they like it, they try to make more of them and see how it goes. And if it does very well, they use tissue cultures or whatever and make more. And you have these new wonderful introductions. And if you go, I'm surprised I didn't put it here, or it is up here, but I have this little black thing here that's covering the area. If you go to mountcuba.org, and I have that information at the end of your handout, they did a trial on 80 something of these hellebores. They did them, they trialed them for 5 years. What they do is they plant them, they get them well established, and then they leave them alone. And then they keep coming back. And I think they did it for 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. I don't remember. And then they put out a report to say which of the hellebores did very hellebores, which of the heucheras did very well, and which ones will do very well in your garden. Also, Chicago Botanic Garden, they also do trials too, so check them out too. If you're looking to plant plants, check those two out to see which plants they recommend for your area. Okay, hostas. As you saw, I loved my hostas, but I can't have them anymore because of the deer. But they are one of the easiest plants to plant. Look at this. You can plant them around trees. They don't care about the root competition. Again, they need to get established, but I think this is one of those plants that get established very well. As you can see from the picture of the deer here, deer love this. Hostas can take part shade and full shade. They can also take full sun if they're watered adequately. And I find that the ones that are variegated meaning more than one color, if they're variegated with white margins, that they can tolerate the sun better than the other ones. They come in all different sizes, from dime size to larger, with leaves that can be 20 inches long, and they can grow to 6 feet wide. And look at all the different variegations, really very nice. And what's nice about them, they never need dividing, because the longer they are in the spot where they are, the prettier they look. The leaves look more mature and prettier, thicker, corrugated, really very pretty. All right, here is Lamium. This is a great plant for shady area. This is also evergreen, also lives for a long time. I planted some under the tree where I have the astilbe many years ago, and it keeps coming back every single year. Here are the different colors of the blooms. You can see that there are different variegation of these leaves, including gold. As you can see, it makes a nice edger. They spread, but they don't go nuts spread. Really pretty. Liriope. Liriope is really great. There are different ones with either bluish, whitish, purplish blooms that come on a spike. And after the blooms are done, you get these black berries. They they are either clumpers or spreaders. This is a spreader. It is the second name is spicata. Takes a long time to get like this, so beware because it takes a long time to fill up an area. Get the ones that are clumpers, like this one here. This is a variegated one. Look how pretty. It makes a nice edging. This is at Deep Cut Gardens. You can see they use it as an edging by the sidewalk. Drought tolerant, lives by the shore. Beautiful, beautiful plant. And look at all the different kinds of light that it can tolerate. And the deer don't either eat it or the rabbits. Here's one of my favorites. This is wood poppy, celandine poppy. Love this plant. It blooms from April to June a lot and then sporadically until frost. Really very pretty. Deer don't eat this. I can't see it, but I think it is poisonous. However, the reason why they don't eat it is because the leaves are fuzzy. You can see the little hairs here, and even the buds are fuzzy as well as the seed pods. Really very pretty. It does self-sow, which is really great, and it makes a nice ground cover, and weeds don't go through them. You don't see any weeds here at all. Really a great plant. Um, Tiarella, a wonderful plant for the shade, also very drought tolerant, does self-sow, can spread with stolons, really very nice. Nice edging plant, has these bottle brush blooms, very drought tolerant, can take a good amount of shade. And this is one of the rare plants that you can plant under rhododendrons and azaleas because it doesn't compete with those with their root system. Really easy plant to grow, very nice. And look at all the different varieties here. Who remembers iron butterfly? Okay, here is a nice shrub. When I was working at the garden center, people would ask me, what can I plant under trees and I don't want to do anything with? This is one of those wonderful shrubs that has nice gold spotting on it. And I had one that was at least 10 feet tall and wide. And then one spring I went down to look at it, and all I saw was a mohawk because the deer have arrived in my garden and they ate this plant. They love this plant, so I can't have it anymore. But it's a gorgeous plant. It's one of those plants that has the berries, but you need to have a male in order for the female to have the berries. And we have these pollinizers, Mr. Goldstrike, Golden King, that will let that happen. It's very slow growing, really great. It's evergreen, beautiful, beautiful. And it can stand tree root competition once it's established. Really a great plant. I highly recommend it, but it does not like sitting in water. So be careful. Don't put it by a downspout. Here it is with the berries, really very pretty, but even without the berries, look how pretty that is. Okay, and here are two different varieties. There's also an akuba that also has just green leaves. Really a very pretty, pretty shrub. Another plant that well, this one the deer do not eat. Why do they not eat this plant? Because of these leaves that have these nice spikes on them. I know that deer eat holly, but for whatever reason, they don't eat this plant. So here are the beautiful, wonderful leaves that keeps them away. And here are this is what blooms in the winter time. This is towards late winter. It has a nice fragrance. Bees and other pollinators need to have that nectar and that pollen. So if you can plant this, and then what happens with these blooms? You have these wonderful berry-like, grape-like structure here. That's why it's called grape holly. However, the one thing that is unfortunate about this plant is it may self-sow. So in some states it's considered invasive. However, not yet here in New Jersey. I highly recommend this plant. Again, it doesn't mind living under deciduous trees. Skimmia, oh my God, what a nice little plant. It looks beautiful in the wintertime. Again, this is a female. It needs a male in order for the female to have these beautiful berries, which you will see all winter long. This is what the buds look like, and then the blooms. And as you know, with the males, the buds and the blooms are always bigger and better. I guess they need to be, but they are long lived. I've had them for, oh God, it must be over 30 years. Really nice. They do spread a little, but not crazy. Again, I have clay soil, so something that spreads for me may spread a lot more if you have sandy soil. Uh, let's see, never needs pruning. Really very, very drought tolerant. Once it's established, I haven't done anything with these plants. So you have to make sure that you get the male and the female. You have to have that label. And there are two types of skimmias, small leaf and larger leaf. The larger leaf are taller. This is in my garden, and this is a close-up. Look how beautiful that looks. So there's a male around somewhere. Doesn't have to be right next to it, but the male did his job, and look how beautiful that looks. And those berries start around August, starting they're green, and they start turning red. They're really very pretty. This is God's answer to a lawn in the woods. You guys in Ocean County are so lucky. You have this growing in so many wooded areas. Whenever I go down Route 70 or down the Parkway and I look to my left and to my right, I see all of this. And this is all low bush blueberries. Really very pretty. Here is what the blooms look like, the berries look like. And the wonderful thing is that these can take that shade, but it can also grow in the sun. And there are many places that grow these berries because they are more nutritious, believe it or not, than the regular blueberry. Really very pretty and very drought tolerant. The deer don't happen to eat them since they're in the woods and they're there, so the deer aren't eating them. This is what it looks like in the fall. So when you're driving down the parkway and you look to your left and your right and you see all this nice red, those are those wonderful low bush blueberries. So if you can, please try to grow them. They love your sandy soil. Questions?
There was a question early on, Patty answered about watering in the fall into the winter, but I think
Yeah,
I
you need
don't.
to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know if there's any else right now, Patty. I don't know if you saw anything.
No, I don't see anything.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Dry sun. This is the fun part. I mean, I love my shade. My gardening, I would say at least over 20 years to 25 years of my garden was only in the shade or part shade because my husband would not give me any part of his lawn. So we have a wooded area in the back, and that's where I gardened. And let me tell you, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I do appreciate it because I learned so much. Because not only do I have that shady area, I have clay soil and I have a high water table. So I really learned a lot. I killed a lot of plants, but a lot of them survived, and I'm so happy that I had that experience because it was a learning experience. And I learned about some really, really great plants like that skimmia. Okay, so here we are in the sun. So there are so many more plants that are available to you. And one of the plants that I showed you before when I was talking about the different leaves and also the different root structures is the yarrow, which is a really easy plant to grow. And the hummingbirds love it, all kinds of pollinators love it. You do need to deadhead it so that it continues to bloom for you. And when you're deadheading, you are fooling the plant into thinking that it didn't have a bloom because plants need to have that bloom in order for them to have a next generation. So if you cut that the faded blooms, they will give you another one. But not all plants that are deadheaded will give you blooms. So as you can see with the yarrow, you will see that the leaves are also built for drought tolerance. You can see that they're fine, so there's not a lot of leaf um, surface for any kind of evaporation. And some of them have grayish leaves, which is good because it reflects the sun also. Uh, the problem with yarrow is that they can be aggressive spreaders, especially in sandy soil. This is health strips, and health strips are that area that nobody wants on your property in front. This is the part between the sidewalk and the street that is your responsibility. And this is yarrows are a great plant to plant there because they don't care what kind of soil, they really don't care what kind of soil they're in. And usually the soil in these health strips aren't really good. Plus, you have a lot of visitors, some of them animals. Leave little presents for you too, which are not good for the plants. However, many of these plants, they tolerate that very well. So this is a really great plant, as you can see examples here, to plant in these health strips if that's what you'd like to do instead of having to mow it. All right, so what I learned, this talk really was, I enjoyed very much because I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I took for granted. Uh, some people would say, oh, yeah, I have yarrow, but man, it spreads like crazy. Well, what I learned is that there are clumpers and there are spreaders. So I put the spreading type in red. Anytime you see millefolium, meaning 1,000 leaves, that variety will spread. So you need to be very careful. Many of the hybrids that they have now are clumpers, so they don't spread. So make sure that when you're looking to purchase yarrow, that you're looking for the ones that do not have millefolium as their middle name because they can really spread and go nuts. Let's see. The deer don't eat this for a number of reasons. Number one, you can see it's poisonous. Number two, if you ever rubbed against the foliage, it really doesn't have a nice smell. Plus, they don't like the highly dissected leaves. Which they don't like that mouthfeel. So there are three reasons why the deer don't eat this plant. So if you do have a deer population, this is one of the plants that you should plant. And it does very well by the seashore. So here is Coronation Gold. This is a tall one. It's 30 to 36 inches tall, but this is the perfect one. If you like drying flowers, this is the one to get. Look at the beautiful foliage, which can dry nicely also. And when you pick it before all the little blooms bloom out. Okay, another one that is not a spreader, but a clumper is Little Moonshine. So when you're looking to get these yarrows, make sure you go online and you make sure you look for the ones that are clumpers and not spreaders. Unless you don't care and you like to have them spread. All right, another plant that's really very drought tolerant is this delicate looking little charmer, which is the columbine. This is our New Jersey native, and it goes all the way up north and all over. Really a wonderful plant. and it has a network of thin roots, just like the plants that suck up all that moisture very quickly from the rain or from the dew. And it does spread. It's not a very long-lived. It's a delicate plant, but it does self-sow. Now, many times when you hear about the columbine, you hear, oh, hummingbirds love it. Well, yeah, they love it. And they, oh, it's red and it's tubular. Yeah, but you know, hummingbirds will go to any plant that has nectar. Doesn't matter whether it's tubular or whether it's red. It's noticeable, I'm sure, but hummingbirds love any plant that has nectar. So you don't have to be planting red tubular plants in order to have hummingbirds come. Uh, let's see. They do like fertile soil. However, they will live if they have to in soil that is not fertile. Uh, People say that this plant needs to be in the shade, not necessarily. They do like to have some moisture, but they are very, very drought tolerant. And I have columbines that self-sow by my patio, and also the driveway that has a lot of cracks that need to be fixed. And trust me, nobody waters there at all. And I have these columbines that self-sow and that grow very nicely. One of the things that I learned also, not just with this, but from gardening, is anytime a plant self-sows and the seed germinates, that plant will be stronger than a plant that you will buy that's in a pot already germinating and growing, because it will not germinate and grow in that area unless it can. So it will be stronger. So as I mentioned before, columbines don't need to be in the shade, and they don't need to have always a lot of moisture. This is a cutie. We have in the United
Irene, sorry, I just want to give you a 10-minute warning.
Oh, crap.
So
Pardon my
just to give
French.
you a time frame, no
Okay.
worries, we can stay on longer, but I just wanted to give you that heads up.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I will go faster, I think. Okay, this is a wonderful plant. We have one that is a true native, that is native to the West Coast, to the seashore, and it lives in the sand in the coastal areas, and it does very well, and it's very drought tolerant. Because as you can see, it has leaves that are narrow, so there's less evaporation going on. But what's really cool about this plant, which I just learned today, is that, look at what it says here. It has specialized soil salt glands. So if there's too much salt that blows from the shore going on there, it secretes that salt, which crystallizes and falls off, which I think is kind of cool. So I'm sure that there are a lot of plants that live by the shore, where there's salt air and salt spray, that they probably have these salt glands too. I never knew that plants can have salt glands. It's amazing what plants have in order to be able to live where they need to live. Anyway, it's very hardy, grows very nicely in a container. And what I learned when I was working at garden centers, that if you deadhead this, see, it's supposed to bloom from April to May. When I was working there one season and we had that, I was deadheading them all the time. They bloomed until Halloween. So if you keep deadheading, you're fooling that plant into thinking, oh, I got to send more blooms. And this plant did it very nicely. Okay, moving along. Gray, silver. Who doesn't like this? This is a wonderful Artemisia. Usually Artemisias, they tend to spread. This one doesn't. This is Valerie finis. And what I learned also is, believe it or not, we have an Artemisia ludoviciana as a native. I forgot where in the United States. I think it's out west, southwest. Really very pretty. It's a wonderful plant. It has felt-like leaves, very drought tolerant. Again, plants that are gray are really drought tolerant because they reflect the sun. The blooms are not anything to write home about. Some people just cut them off. Here is a close-up of the beautiful foliage, very long-lived. All right, here we have, if you have sandy soil, these are perfect. And once they're planted, they get established very quickly. This is non-invasive type of an Artemisia because they do tend to spread like crazy. This is a wonderful plant for that health strip that you have. Really a great plant. I tried growing this, wasn't happy with my clay. Here's another one that does very well, and it can be aggressive spreader, which is a great thing to have at that health strip. Okay, butterfly weed, a wonderful native that was perennial of the year. Hummingbirds love it, attracts beneficial insects, and this one is it's doesn't like to wake up in the spring. So if you planted this, and it has a long taproot, that's why it's very drought tolerant. And when you go in the spring and you look for that plant and you don't see it, it doesn't mean that it's dead. It just takes a long time for it to wake up. I guess it needs the soil to get warmed up a lot more. But it is a really great plant. Monarch butterflies need this plant because it is poisonous, and their caterpillars, their larvae really need that poison, and the leaves, they need that food for their caterpillars or larvae to grow. Here are the seed pods. These are milkweed bugs. They really don't do any harm. When I found them on my plant, I called Diane. I said, "Oh my gosh." She says, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just take a hose and just hose them off." And that's what I did, and there wasn't a problem. These nice seed pods with these little parachute attached to the seeds, really nice. You can grow them from seed very nicely. They do not like to be disturbed because they do have that long taproot. Let's see, and they do need good drainage. Another plant that has a long taproot, this is Baptisia. Um, has these beautiful blue flowers in the spring. It doesn't bloom really that long. Doesn't make a good cut flower. You cut it in, you bring it in, and what happens is this turns all black. And if you want to distract a toddler for about less than a minute, the seed pods, they dry up and you can shake them and it makes noise. Um, so it really, and the older that plant is, the more it looks like a shrub. It's a really easy, very easy plant to grow and very pretty. It's in the pea family. It does fix nitrogen in the soil. I don't understand all that chemistry, but it's a really great plant to have. This plant I have been recommending this plant to anybody who would listen to me. This is Calaminta, really a wonderful, easy plant. It self-sows beautifully, has these beautiful blooms on the plant from June until frost. No deadheading needed. Deer don't eat it because it smells like minty oregano, has these leaves that are small, and uh, they're drought tolerant not only because of their how small they are, but whenever you have a plant that has a fragrance, it's the essential oils. And again, like I said before, I don't understand chemistry and stuff like that, but any plant that have essential oils, that also impedes the evaporation of moisture. So many of the plants that have a fragrance to it are drought tolerant like this one. So this one blooms all season long, self-sows. Again, the cracks in my driveway, it's either the columbine or these wonderful calaminta that are growing there. No fuss, easy care, was recommended for perennial of the year 2021. So this is the basic one. Then we have Marvelet Blue. This one only grows 8 to 12 inches high. This also self-sows. A tiny plant, really nice, blooms again all season long. And here is White Cloud. White Cloud is a lot taller, 12 to 24 inches, and also self-sows like crazy. There are varieties, I forget the name, Montrose White or whatever, that do not self-sow. It's an easy plant, great plant to plant in front of leggy plants or to plant as a nice border somewhere in front of leggy plants. Wine cups, poppy mallow. Oh God, I love this plant. It doesn't like my clay soil very much, but it is a great plant. It has taproot also. It has these beautiful blooms that close up at night and open up in the morning unless it's been pollinated. Then it stays closed. This is here. This is in my garden years ago. As you can see, I have a lot of stuff going on. What's amazing about this plant is the stems can go 24 inches to 36 inches away. However, they will not smother the plant next to them. They will wend their way in between plants, as you can see here. Or if it's in the middle of two taller plants, it will go up instead of out. Really a wonderful, easy to grow plant. Blooms from June to July and then later on too. Really beautiful, easy to grow plant. This is Coreopsis. Coreopsis are wonderful, very drought tolerant, all of them. This one, if you grow from seed, it will bloom the first year. Not all perennials will do that. This has gotten so many awards, really wonderful plant. I grew this many years ago before I had deer. Really easy to grow, really great drought tolerant plant. This is Moonbeam. This was chosen perennial of the year. Deer don't eat it. They eat all the other coreopsis, but they don't eat the ones that have these narrow leaves. This has a light yellow blooms. And unfortunately, it is a perennial. It doesn't live very long, 3-4 years, but this is the one that I really like. This is Zagreb. The colors are a lot more yellow, really very pretty, same type of foliage. They're not as tall, but they bloom and they live almost forever. I have some that's growing in between ivy, would you believe? Like I said, there are some areas, I used to have like 18 beds when I was really working at garden centers. However, I had to let go of some of those beds because I don't have the energy that I used to have, and I have other things that I like to do besides gardening. And in those beds that I've neglected, this plant and some other plants, which I will show you, they keep coming back because they basically are low maintenance or no maintenance. Really very easy. Now this plant and the moonbeam, once they finish blooming and they look like they're done, you just gather it up and give it a haircut. And in a few weeks, you'll have another flush of blooms. And you can keep doing that until frost. Very easy to grow, very pretty, does very well in whatever condition you put it in, as long as it has great drainage and it has full sun. Belosperma is a succulent that does very well. It does self-sow, and the stems do root wherever it touches. Very easy, no care, and blooms from June to September. What more can you ask for? Coneflower, truly American plant, American perennial, really very pretty, very easy to grow. Deer don't eat it because it does have a fuzzy hairy leaf. However, I cannot grow it because I have groundhogs. And whatever the deer don't eat, the groundhogs eat. And I'm waiting for Rutgers or somebody to give me a list of plants that the groundhogs do not eat. There is no list out there like that, unfortunately. Same thing with my heuchera. I cannot grow heuchera anymore. The deer don't eat the heuchera, but the groundhogs do. So here are two plants that unfortunately I cannot grow in my garden, but they're easy to grow. You could deadhead them and they will keep blooming for a very long time. And some can even bloom into October and November. You need to read that label and you need to find the ones that do that, because they don't all go all the way to frost. And if you can, please leave the seed heads for the birds. Really very important. Here's another plant, a globe-like plant, really drought tolerant, really very pretty, blooms for a very long time, July to September. The blue ones are nice. It does self-sow. Whatever you do, do not get the white one. I grew the white one. Self-sows all over the place and not as pretty. So stick with the blue. Here it is. Deer don't eat it. It has spines on its leaves. This is another plant that does very well. Sea holly does very well in sandy soil. There are different heights. This one is 24, 36 inches high. Look at that beautiful blue color. Spiny. Deer do not eat that, do not like that. Here's another one. This is only 8 to 12 inches high. Really very pretty. Isn't that gorgeous? Here is a wonderful native that I planted this year, and I'm hoping it says here that it self-sows. I'm waiting for it to self-sow. I love plants that self-sow and cover areas. So this plant has a nice deep tap root, and it starts blooming in July and goes into August. Right now, all of this is brown, and I noticed that some of this the seeds are gone already, whether it's by birds or whether it's the wind, I don't know. But this is a perfect plant for a health strip. Here is a close-up. Look how cool that looks. It gets kind of tall, anywhere from 2 to 5 feet tall. Mine, I think, is about 3.5 feet tall. Really very pretty. This is a euphorbia, again, in the family of poinsettia. I have this plant. What's great about it, it has these variegated leaves, and this reddish color is in the spring and also when it starts getting cooler. And it is evergreen. Mine lived through winter very nicely. Uh, here are the blooms. Like I said before, it's like the poinsettia blooms. It's those teeny tiny little things that are the blooms. But really very pretty, very easy, no maintenance really. Okay, here we have blanket flower. Blanket flowers are wonderful. They love sandy soil. They do not like clay soil at all. Haven't been able to grow them. I did grow a burgundy one and it bloomed itself to death. You know, plants put a lot of energy into blooming. So much energy goes into blooming, and blanket flower, gaillardias, they just bloom, 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 and they may not come back because they just bloom themselves to death, really. They have beautiful seed pods, seed heads, as you can see here. Excuse me. I like to include short ones because when you go buying plants, usually they're 24 inches high, 36 inches high, or taller, and you don't see very many that are short. So I try to show shorter plants so you can find some that you can plant in front of the taller ones. And this blanket flower Arizona Sun is a really easy plant to grow, really very pretty. And look how big the blooms are for a tiny plant. 3 inches, that's a nice size bloom. Whoops. Here is Arizona apricot. Look at the beautiful coloring. Another shorty. And here is Arizona red shades. You know, I've noticed that out of all the colors of blooms, red is the least, not popular, the least that happens. Okay, Mardi Gras helenium, what a great plant, especially July and September when all the plants are starting to poop out and they're tired. If you want some pizzazz in your garden, look at that beautiful, those beautiful petals that have multiple colors, yellow, orange, and reddish. Really very pretty, very easy to grow. Does not like to have over fertilized soil. So for those of you who have sandy soil, great plant, and it loves my clay. Really wonderful plant. Daylilies, wonderful daylilies. I cannot have them because deer love them, but they are very easy. They have those fleshy roots that keeps them nicely moistened. If you can, get reblooming ones, but make sure that you find out where they are reblooming, because if they rebloom in the south, that means it may not be reblooming up north. So Stellador is a famous one, so is Happy Returns, and then there are these others. Really great plant. A stone crop. They've changed the names. The taller ones are now Hylotelephymium, whatever. And Autumn Joy is a really nice one. I love how they look when they're in bud, and especially when they're starting to bloom, all the different colorings, I think is very pretty. They do tend after a few years to sort of flop. which I don't like. However, very pretty, very easy, very drought tolerant. If you can leave the seed heads, please do for the birds, and also looks pretty if we ever get snow. But the one that I love is this Matrona. What a wonderful plant. It has these wine red stems, and look at the leaves. They are that nice bluish green, really very pretty. Behaves the same way as Autumn Joy, only it does stand up erect and it doesn't flop over on with an empty center. Okay, here is a wonderful evergreen ground coverish type of a plant. This is Iberis, comes from Spain area. A candy tuft. This one is called Autumn Beauty. Why? Because it blooms not only in the spring, but it also blooms again in the fall. It has these little leaves that are very drought tolerant, really very nice. After they finish blooming, if you can give it a nice little shearing, it'll keep everything looking compact and very nicely. Loves dry, shallow, rocky soil. So those of you with sandy soil, this is the plant to get. Really nice. It's always nice to have an evergreen plant. Bearded iris with their rhizomes. Look at all the different colors. Really a beautiful plant. Even the hummingbirds love it. Whoops. If you can get rebloomers, immortality I have, it's been living with in my garden for God knows how many years. So if the plant is planted where it does very well because you are giving it what it needs, plants will live for a long, long time. Nephafia, red hot poker, a wonderful, very drought tolerant plant. Another one for health strip, really very nice. And look at this one. Doesn't this just melt your heart? What a beautiful orange colors. Phenomenal is lavender. Lavenders do not like humidity. However, this one was made specifically for New Jersey weather because what do we have? We have high humidity. This one is taller than the regular lavenders, 24 to 36 inches high. You can see the lady standing in the field. But just like the other lavenders that you may have grown, it likes sandy soil, it needs good drainage, and you do need to cut it back in the spring to about 6 to 8 inches, so that way it doesn't flop over. Really very easy, very low maintenance, and if you like that smell, this is the one to get. Liatris, this is cobalt, which I've grown. You can grow this from seed. This one was made for the floral industry. As you can see, look at the way that it blooms. Really very pretty, easy to grow. This is the corm. Like I showed you before, very drought tolerant. Look at the leaves, nice and narrow. Again, it doesn't have that much leaf surface for evaporation. I love this little plant. This is so cool. And I like that it self-sows. It likes living in the sun, but also part shade. It comes in this beautiful magenta color. It has these wonderful leaves, comes in white, comes in blush, really very easy to grow, really very nice. And if you deadhead it, it will keep blooming for a very long time. This is another plant that will do you nicely for a long time. And once it starts looking like it's done, just like the coreopsis, you just grab it, give it a haircut, and you can have new flushes of blooms throughout the season until frost. Gray leaves, very drought tolerant, really easy plant to grow. Here is one of our natives. This is Phlox subulata or moss phlox or moss pinks. Comes in various colors. It's evergreen, so you're left with this nice foliage in the wintertime. Look how pretty that looks. Very easy. Needs dry, poor soil. Perfect for your sandy gardens. Here are some of the different varieties, very pretty. Look how well and how easy it's growing. This is a plant for a 2025 perennial plant of the year. This blooms just like the poinsettia is. This is what the blooms are. this is what the bracts are. And from July until frost, this is what you look at. And butterflies flock to this plant as well as beneficial insects. So this is the wonderful, very easy to take care of plant. It can tolerate some part shade, which is where I have it growing. It's been growing in my garden for God knows how many years. Because of my clay soil, it does not really spread. So maybe in your sandy soil, it may spread a little, but all you need is a spade and just, dig out whatever you don't want and give to your friends. Let's see. Okay, I did not talk about rain garden. I don't have time for rain garden talk. However, if you do have a rain garden, make sure whenever you see plants that are advertised that can do that, like moist or wet soil, right away they stick the label great for a rain garden. Not so. In order for a plant to be good for a rain garden, it needs to be drought tolerant. Because how many times do we have lots of rain or not so much, and then we have long periods of no rain at all? So if you have a rain garden, you need to have plants that not only can stand being in wet for a while, but also can stand not being watered for weeks at a time. So this plant is that perfect plant. American Gold Rush is one of the black-eyed Susans. I put this one in instead of Goldstrom or whichever. There are a whole bunch of them. We have a lot of Rudbeckias. They're really great. They're very easy. They're drought tolerant, resilient plants, do very well. Go to the Chicago Botanic Garden. They will have trialed some of them. And what's nice about this one, look how it covers the plant. The blooms cover the plant so nicely instead of just blooming up on top. And what's great about it is that it blooms until October. I don't think any other Rudbeckia, well, there are other Rudbeckias that do bloom into October, but this one is really very pretty and a nice short one, 18 to 24 inches. Here are some, look how pretty the Rudbeckias look. There's a whole bunch of different sages. They're all really very drought tolerant. Some are annuals, some are perennials. Really easy plant. Look how they look in those strips, the health strips. Perovskia, well, that's what it used to be called. Now it's salvia. Things have been, they do DNA and stuff like that. And now they see which plants belong together. So many of these plants were like switched at the hospital. They were given to the wrong parents. They were put in different groups of plants because of either the way the flowers looked, the leaves looked, or whatever else. And then they found with doing DNA that it's a separate family altogether. So now this is a salvia. It does smell like a salvia. This salvia yangii. This is the little spire. There's a whole bunch of really nice ones, more blue, shorter, more floriferous, really nice, a whole slew of them. So look around, really a drought tolerant plant like no other, and it blooms from July until frost. This is an evergreen stonecrop sedum. I love this plant. It really nice, easy care. No, the deer don't eat it. Deer aren't supposed to eat sedums because from what I read, it has a bitter flavor to it and deer don't like that. I love bitter. So I think there are some deer that like bitter because I know deer like to eat some of the sedums. All right, so look how pretty the leaves look. Here it is, and the blooms are yellow. And what's nice is during when it gets colder, there's a nice purplish or whatever reddish flush, but it is evergreen, which is really nice, as you can see here. How cool is that? Here's another one that's really cool. This is Angelina, another one that I love. Also has yellow blooms, also has a reddish tinge when it gets cooler. Look how pretty it looks during the winter months. Cool. Melts my heart. Okay, hens and chicks. Another plant. This is one plant that you never, never, ever have to water it. It has all the moisture that it needs in the leaves. And the hens and chicks is because the hen is the one that flowers and then dies after flowering. But before she dies, she has all these little babies, all these little chicks that are sent out. And that will be the hens the next year. Really very pretty, very easy. All it needs is full sun and good drainage. doesn't really need a lot of soil. This is on my patio. Look how pretty that looks in the winter. That is snow. I wonder if we're going to have snow this year. Okay, Solidago or goldenrod, you need to plant this. This is a really great one from Chicago Botanic Garden. Fireworks, look at the way that it looks just like fireworks. The butterflies and the bees and all the pollinators that are still around really need this for their nectar and their pollen. Please, please try to plant these. This one is great for any garden, and this one for all of you who have sandy soil, this is the one that's at the beach. Really very nice. Look at all the butterflies. Really a great plant. Showed you this before. This one is silver carpet. This one does not bloom because those blooms, not everybody likes those blooms. Look at the leaves. Really an easy plant, makes a great ground cover, and it can be aggressive in rich soil, so plant them in your sandy gardens. October skies, this is an aster. They again changed the name, DNA, and this one blooms until October. Not all asters do. 1-inch bloom, which are really very pretty. Look how they cover the plant very nicely. Gorgeous. Pollinators need this plant. Please plant those asters. If you go to the High Line, I went in October, and you see so many different asters, all so pretty. So if you want beautiful blooms that are not just the yellow or the maroon blooms, get these asters and have them blooming and make all those wonderful pollinators happy. And this one blooms into November, Radon's favorite. Look how beautiful it looks. Really a gorgeous plant. Verbena on a stick. This is a see-through plant, drought tolerant, self-sows like crazy, but really nice because you can see through it, so it doesn't matter. Really very easy plant to grow. Here it is in a garden. Good old yucca. Who doesn't love yucca? Lots of people, unfortunately, but it's a succulent and it blooms these beautiful blooms, and it lives. I have some in shady areas and in sunny areas. They've been living there for as long as we are in the house, over 35 years, and I've never had to do anything. I planted color guard. How beautiful it looks. Really wonderful. And ornamental grasses. They change all season long, really beautiful. Some of them do very nicely in the wintertime. And I put no here as far as miscanthus because they are considered invasive. They're getting worse and worse. If you can plant beach plum, please do. They live on the shore. They can be covered with the sand with the wind, but they will break through and throw more new stems. Some of them may be 30, 40 years old, really very nice. They have these wonderful beach plums. Unfortunately, the beach plums, they don't come out every year. I think every 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. They bloom in the spring before the leaves come in with these beautiful blooms. And look at the foliage in the fall. Really wonderful plant, and so easy care. And if you have sandy soil, I am so jealous, especially if you make that wonderful beach plum jam or jelly. Okay, this is Virginia Sweet Spire. Here's another plant instead of that burning bush. It has these beautiful bottle brush blooms from May to June. Again, this is a wonderful plant for a rain garden if you have one. And what's great about it is that it has a wonderful red foliage in the fall. Look how pretty. Henry's garnet. I love this plant. Deer do too. That's my plant. That's what I had. And then the deer came. Look at the blooms. They look like little roses. So this can take full sun, part shade. If it gets too much sun, it starts getting a little white around the edges. Really a wonderful plant. Blooms from April to May like that, and then on and off until frost. Really very pretty. It has these nice green stems in the wintertime, but unfortunately the deer love this plant and I can no longer grow it. This is a wonderful sapphire, a wonderful evergreen bush, a shrub to put in your yard. It's a wonderful specimen plant, very slow grower, so you don't need to worry about it outgrowing its area. No pruning needed. Really very, loves poor soil. And average soil is fine, doesn't like standing water. Really a long-lived shrub, really very beautiful. If you can grow this, please do. And I cannot end my talk without telling you, as I told you before, most of my gardening was in the shade. So any plant that had, that it would say does well in full sun part shade, I always would get it because that part shade was important to me. Also, if somebody gave me a plant, I would grow it because it wasn't easy to find plants to put in my shady garden. All of these can grow in the shade, but all of these are thugs. Every single one of them, even the lily of the valley. After a while, they just take over. So please do not plant these. Do not be tempted. And this one's invasive, really invasive. In fact, I think in Pennsylvania and some states, they're not allowed to sell it. In New Jersey, we don't have that law yet, unfortunately. And yes, I know this is a native. However, it tends to be aggressive. There's also a white one which isn't as aggressive. And here are more, they're listed in your handout. And with these grasses, these two grasses, don't even plant them in containers because it self-sows all over the place. I've been yanking, well, what's bad about them? You can't yank them out. When they germinate, you need to dig them out. So this one and this one, I have been pulling out for the last 15 years. So if you plant them, you will be suffering like I am. All right, so when some generous gardener wants to share plants with you, you need to ask, is it aggressive or invasive? And if it is, unless you have a lot of space, please say no. No, thank you. Okay, so here are different places where you can get more information, gardens you can visit, and I put this here because please do not buy any miscanthus or maiden grass. I used to talk about them all the time because they're so pretty, but most of them, a very few, are not invasive. All this is so beautiful, but something that's beautiful can be deadly or not what you want. So please do not plant these at all. Thank you, thank you. I hope I didn't go over too much.
Well, we kind of, yes, you did, but that's okay. We we love your talk. You
My
still have
heart.
30. Yeah, you still have 30 people on, so we really enjoy that everybody was attentive. And you know what? You have such great information. There's so much to talk about, and you're
I
so
know.
passionate about what you do.
Thank you.
So,
So how many
but yes,
people do we have? Out of curiosity.
we still have 29 on. And
Okay.
then yeah, we had 40 something earlier. I wanted to just reiterate too the miscanthus. Unfortunately, it is an invasive and it is taking over in the dunes now, and that is
It
why it
is.
reseeds itself. Unfortunately, a
Yeah.
pretty grass, but just not good. Yeah, if there's any questions, we still have, we were going to shut you off at 8:30, but if there's any questions, anybody can write in on the chat. I see a lot of thank yous. And yeah, we know we ran over, but we do have the recording for those that had to leave earlier.
Wow, I'm
So
sorry I went over.
that's
Oh,
okay.
it's all right.
Yeah,
Well,
Are
and
thank you
we?
Denise,
for your, yes,
You know
thank
who
you.
you are. We're not new.
I have a reputation for going over.
A little.
just a little.
Well, thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such good information, and if it weren't, you wouldn't have 30 people still on. So we really appreciate it. I mean, it's so
No, no,
thorough and well researched. So really
no.
great information.
And you have no idea how flattered and honored I am that you asked me to do this.
Mm.
I
It's always-
mean,
Truly, truly.
I mean, I think it's a great topic, and you're so passionate about plants. There's no one better to have these type of talks because you're plus you worked at the garden center, so you really have
Yes.
experience with such a wide range of plants.
Mhm.
True.
And it doesn't matter. I don't care how long I garden. I don't care what degree I have. I always learn something in your talks and
Yeah.
everybody. There's always room to
Yep.
improve and know. So yes, thank you so much, Irene, for all
Thank
you
you.
do.
Thank you.
Oh, I
My
see Mike's
pleasure.
comment. He's heading over to see the American Revolution episode 3. Me
Yeah.
too, Mike. It's fantastic.
Oh, good.
Uh,
I DVR'd it.
Yeah, it's
there you
great.
go.
It's great. I've seen the first 2 episodes.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
So Mike, if you missed the beginning, Irene's got the DVR. She's gonna have the copy.
Yay, two
So
over.
yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna say goodnight. Thank you for
All right.
everybody. Have
Thank
a
you. Thank
wonderful
you.
holiday coming up.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and always our emails, you can always reach us at any time, and we will do our best to keep you growing in whatever county you live in. Thank you,
Yay.
everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a
Happy
good night.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
Okay.
Great job,
Bye-bye.
Irene. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you guys.
We love you too.
We love
No,
you
thank
too.
you. Okay. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too. Thanks.
Too.
Thanks. Okay.